I didn't experience this love at the first sight. I didn't experience him being a humble human being that tries to lead people to perfect themselves. I got a completely different impression. I immediately started judging him with, like, I never judged anyone so much like him. And the moment I saw him,
he embodies so many things, but sometimes people ask me, describe your guru to me, and I'm just like, the master provocateur. I respect that we have our beliefs. I believe Guruji's divine incarnation, God incarnation. Yes, I do. But I have to be very careful. So for me, to believe Guruji is God does not require me to therefore denigrate other gurus by saying they are therefore lesser. Like if a follower of Christ acknowledges that Christ is not the only divine embodiment that has ever walked this earth, we can have real conversations and real connection. Jai Gurudev, Rishi Aditya.
Jai Gurudev, Swami Revati.
Welcome to my podcast. It's nice to have you here. We are doing cultural bridging here. We have an Argentine on my podcast for the first time. I'm Brazilian, for those of you who don't know. There's cultural tension, but we're here to solve it, to unite and hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Well, let's see at the end of the podcast. But yeah, that's the idea.
But at least we've got a nice topic today, so nothing really contentious, let's say.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, maybe let's talk a little bit about you and your background and how you got here and became this version of Aditya. So tell me a bit about where you come from and what you were doing before you joined.
Okay, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Very nice to be here. And I came actually in 2017 for the first time to Bhakti Marga. But before that, I was living in Argentina, in the north, in a small touristic city. And together with friends, I have a touristic business and agencies and a restaurant. So I basically was in the business world. And because I love to travel since I was young, even any free time that I have, I travel around. And I study also business administrations in the university. Mm-hmm. So my life was really into that kind of world, but with a little bit more of new style or like new age approach. Mm-hmm. Not a typical businessman, sure, but more like enjoying life at the same time.
Right, not office desk, this kind of thing.
Yeah, that will kill me. Actually, I escaped because after finishing the university, I was working in a huge corporation. And there is a place in Argentina called Puerto Madero in Buenos Aires that is the most expensive area where all of these huge corporations are. And I was from the huge window of my office looking outside to the sea. And I got this feeling inside, I'm going to die in this aquarium. Oh, wow. And I used to have going out for lunch, and my motivation was to go on the trees, like under the trees, and have my lunch there or something. I need nature. So I basically quit all of that corporative life, and I came back to what was my hometown, and that's where I started the business. Right. In the tourist industry.
And so your goal was really to do a business that would, let's say, make you enough money so that you could actually go and live your life, be adventurous and...
100%. That was my recipe for happiness, I would say.
Right.
Because normally, or you have a lot of time and you don't have any money, student life.
Sure.
You have 4 months every year to travel, but you need to go hitchhiking. Or you have a lot of money or money and you don't have time to travel.
You're working all the time. Yeah.
So I say the perfect for me would be I get a job that pays my
trips.
Trips.
Yeah.
So I actually it happened after 4 years. My friends took the administration of the business. Mm-hmm. I arranged with some money that they will give me every month, from the.
So they ran your business for you.
Yeah.
And they give you a percentage or whatever.
Yeah, we were very good friends, a lot of trust. So basically, and I took care for the first years. So they say like, bro, go traveling. I finished my relationship, a loving relationship back then. So I also was needing for fresh air to get in love somewhere else, So I went to Latin America, Argentina. I bought an old car and I traveled the whole country, Uruguay and other countries in a very old car from the 70s. Was kind of my dreams also. And then I met a spiritual master, actually trying to like I met a girl actually in Rio de Janeiro, where is your city, where you are from, and because of her, when I went to visit her, she was living very close to a spiritual master, Prembaba, in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to visit to this master, and I get in touch with this spirituality thing.
Right.
A lot of people searching for something else, people with divine experiences or other. They talk about different things that I was used to. And I did a prayer there that I wanted to live in a like grounded spiritual community, not a hippie thing, like a really grounded place that I could actually learn about the soul. And the trip continued, and I came to Europe. I stayed 1 year traveling in Europe, and after 1 year, different things happened. But my dad invited me or told me to come to visit Swami Vishwananda, because I was staying in the south of Germany, and he said, there is this guru very close from where you are.
Right.
Go to see him and tell me how do you feel with him? Because for my dad, Guruji made him remember a lot to Paramahamsa Vishwananda.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the connection of my dad with Guruji. Somehow he felt like attracted, Indian look like, and the teachings, or what he considered the teachings. But then, and I came here, and this actually connected to what we want to speak today. That is, I don't know if you want to present it, but it's
Sure, go ahead.
basically experiences in the path. And experiences in the past, divine experiences with Paramahamsa Vishwananda, I think they intercross each other in my way. But when I came, shortly after, I was concerned about the concept of God. I have like the belief that if God exists, there is nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Just if I can prove that God exists, then whatever happens in life is kind of being handled by a
higher intelligence. Whatever.
Greater than mine. So I don't need to worry.
Right,
it's like that is taking care.
Mm-hmm.
So if God would exist, so that was because when
some
you
form
travel,
of surrender, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, back then I was
Some
maybe was
concept
laziness.
of it, but laziness, passiveness, surrender. Sometimes two sides of the same coin, but
change.
Yeah.
So back then, what I really wanted is to prove the existence of God. And when I came to the ashram, the things that the people here were saying is, he can show you God, he can give you God. And they were speaking about Guruji.
Guruji, right.
But I ran with a disadvantage, I would say, because I started speaking with them and they were sharing the stories. And basically, what they all speak was not only the miracles, that we can go to that later, but also this strong feeling of belonging to him, to the path, to this foreign culture that we could say that is Hinduism. And in my case, when I saw Guruji, I didn't experience this. I didn't experience this love at the first sight. I didn't experience him being a humble human being that tries to lead people to perfect themselves. I got a completely different impression. I immediately started judging him with, I never judged anyone so much like him. And the moment I saw him, because I was waiting in the ashram for 2 weeks until he would actually come. And when he showed up, he was driving this fancy golf car, blue. They put like neon lights underneath, and he was driving with this shiny robe, red, and jewels. And he walks out of the golf car, and people is bowing down to him. And when I saw that, I like all of this expectation of meeting this great spiritual master that can show me God, just went to the trash. And I started feeling very sad, actually, because I said, this is where I put all my hope in the last weeks. And it didn't stop there. Guruji, he gave a satsang, and people start asking questions, and then he started shouting to the people who asked the questions. That's so
stupid questions.
Stupid questions. Why? Yeah. But what I was surprised about is that the people who were being shouted at, they were laughing. They were like cool with everything. They didn't take it personal. They were saying, "Oh, it's so funny, Guruji." I said like, bro, he just called you idiot. Why are you laughing? And I just came completely from the world to a hardcore spirituality university.
I sometimes say Guruji, he embodies so many things, but sometimes people ask me, describe your guru to me. And I'm just like, the master provocateur. He just provokes like nobody else I've ever met in my life. I said to his face, I said, Guruji, you could provoke a statue to come alive and start arguing with you. Yeah. And then he looked at me like smiling because he acknowledged that it's true and funny, and at the same time kind of like, what are you saying about me? And I was just like, you do it. You're a hardcore provoker. And he does it on purpose. Anyway, maybe we'll come to that in stories part.
He said, let's jump a bit to the front. He said, I came here to challenge the mind.
Yeah.
But what's
his own stated purpose, yeah.
His own?
His own stated purpose. Like, it's like sometimes we try to say why people come or whatever, and then it's like, well, he actually answered it. He said it himself. He's like, I'm here to challenge your mind.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. He said, no, if you want something to tell you what you want to hear, go somewhere else. Don't come to me.
Correct.
Yeah, but I didn't know that back then. So I'm there completely fresh and looking at this and looking at all of this circus. That was the feeling. This is a circus. When I came on the first day, they were worshipping a lion. I didn't know that it's Lord Narasimha. They were just a lot of people dancing around a lion and with the tilak, the paint on the forehead. So was everything, it felt like a circus. But it really strikes me the happiness that people had in their face, and they didn't drink, they didn't took drugs or anything. They were just happy. And that actually pushed me to engage, to start asking, to talk. But I said I ran with a disadvantage because I didn't connect with this love at the first sight with Guruji, that many of them, they were telling me, in the moment I saw him in the ashram, I started crying for 2 hours. I was speaking with Shashwata, the other Brazilian from Salvador. And Shash was telling his first experience, 2 hours crying after just seeing Guruji and saying like something from inside made him just crying nonstop. And for me, it was the opposite. I was just judging him nonstop for 2 hours. And walking around, I had my opportunities. You were there on my first encounter, and Guruji called me to speak. And shortly after, he was very kind. I must say that, he was not, with me, he was very kind. But
in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, he's jumping to the front, kind in different ways. But what I could see is he was all the time asking, how are you? And inside was this negativity, just
a different story was passing through your head, right?
And one day I asked him, I had the opportunity, and asked him, Guruji, why is all of this anger coming against you? And he told me, he revealed a bit about my relationship with him, not from this life, but from another life. And he said that in that life, I didn't actually pass the test. And because of that, I pushed myself away from him. And the emptiness that I started feeling inside made me start like a self-destruction process, trying to fill the void of this like divine relationship with the spiritual master.
Which you can't really replace, but yeah.
You can't. So, but I guess he didn't went into details, but I can imagine drugs, sex, whatever. Like whatever I try in this life, trying to fulfill that void.
Sometimes I don't think it's trying to fulfill the void. I think sometimes it's trying to numb ourselves from recognizing the void. It's more like, I think we all know deep down. Like if you speak to the most materialistic person, I don't think that they're going to sell you the idea that, yes, those kind of things that I'm experiencing are the peak of humanity. I think it's more that they are the peak distractors. Like they really numb your consciousness from the underlying deeper feelings that you have. Because at the end of the day, you take the toughest gangster guy who likes to do all this stuff, and it's like put him in his mother's lap and he'll cry and hug her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think often it's just that.
Yeah, but to what do they hold then? Or what do we hold on? Because you don't have the answers. Now, if you start this weird path of self-inquiring, what's the meaning of life, and you can have so many books, so many theories, so many.
Sometimes it can get even worse.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to improve your life, you start to read these things, and actually it just makes you feel worse because you become more and more aware that you have a problem, but the solution isn't clear. And so sometimes I even heard Guruji say that to me once. So the worst thing you can do to someone is point out that they have a problem, but don't help them find a solution. Because at least before they knew they had a problem, they were happy in ignorance. Now they're depressed in knowledge. And so he said it's not that it's not a important, necessary step, but you shouldn't do that step on its own. Like if you're going to expose somebody's wrong perception of life or hypocrisy or whatever it is, it has to be married with genuine compassion for the person. So it's like then at that point you're going to actually help them navigate through that to a solution, not just you're in Maya and walk away. And the person's like, I'm in Maya. How do I get out? And you don't have an answer. And now you cannot love Maya anymore because you know it's Maya, but you don't love God because you don't have the way to that. You don't have this connection. And so you're just in this no man's land in the middle. But
yeah. In that sense, I see Guruji that always he put himself on the level of the people to help them, as you say, not to leave them alone.
I agree with that.
No, if he gives you a challenge,
he holds the hand. Like it's with one hand he's holding your hand, the other hand he's giving it. It's like that.
The cleaning.
It's true.
Yeah. So well, at this point, I actually asked Guruji. That's one of my first questions. I'm ashamed of it, but back then it made sense to make this question to him. I asked him, Guruji, what's my spiritual level? Because you come here and you start playing spiritual, and you think you're the chosen one. Like I don't know, a lot of weird ideas of being special. Yeah, and the reincarnation of Jesus, like I know, not really this, but this.
Brother, you really think Jesus was going to reincarnate in Argentina? Come on.
I'm sure. We have the Pope.
Oh, it's true. It's true. I walked into that one.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
So
you asked him that question.
I asked him that question. What's my spiritual level? In which I'm black belt, I'm yellow belt, I'm red belt, and he said he laughed softly and he said, "You are just starting." And shortly after, I realized, it's true. I came really like a baby, a spiritual baby.
Yeah.
And so he was holding me, despite me being like an angry dog, and inside of my mind judging and everything. And him, he was holding me and taking me. And I say this because I could not connect with him as I could see the other people connecting with him. What kept me alive, like this line, and what gives me like a pulse time to time, was to listen to the experiences of people. Because I saw Guruji as a normal human dude walking with fancy clothes and giving advice that at that moment I say you can get them in Google, you can get them in any spiritual master. I didn't, because I didn't connect with his teachings neither. For me, the only thing I had is a strong, or not strong back then, but was a voice inside of, you need to go through this. Mm-hmm. Hold on, like you will see light in the end of the tunnel. That was a voice that always kept me going.
Interesting.
But my mind was always
negative,
challenged and on guard.
Mm-hmm.
And then trying to look for advice, I met Swami Parantapa and I told him how I felt. And he put his eyes, like intense Swami Parantapa eyes, and he said, he will take you to all of your hells, one by one. And then when you learn to put light there, then he will take you to the next one. Because that's actually how I felt. Because it was inside. Outside was everything okay. People is super nice. Guruji was nice. Like Bhakti was super supportive. They give me everything when I came. But the inside was a proper Kurukshetra.
Mm-hmm.
And so it felt like that. It's a process. And then I heard Swami Naruto also saying, they are not negative process. They are positive process of transcending negativity. And I think whoever engaged in the spiritual path, in any spiritual path, and you're facing yourself, I think you may know what I'm speaking about when you face this.
No, I like that way of looking at it. It's a positive process of transcending your negativity.
So I start listening stories and miracles and stuff, and that gives me like a momentary patch to gain faith, trust, and keep going. It was like a shot, dopamine. Instead than Instagram funny videos was, I hear a story and that makes me feel calm, that everything is okay. It's just time. I just need to wait, that the process finish. And I start listening crazy stories that we can go to that later. I took some notes on the stories because I didn't want to forget there are crazy things that I heard. Mm-hmm. But basically was, or what actually I like a lot on the stories of Guruji is this pattern of when he creates like a miracle or a situation, is it's always with a bit of fun or bizarre component on it that makes it super funny. It's not just a miracle.
He has a sense of humor with his.
Always, it's kind of his how to say, like a stamp.
His stamp. His signature kind of thing. Yeah.
That when he creates a miracle, there is always some bizarre situation around it, of how the situation comes.
No, it's true. When I think of my life, actually, some of the stories that I have, funny situations that lead to, like, you know, very amazing and incredible moments, but always surrounded by, well, not always. I've got a couple that were not funny at all, but mostly funny. I agree with you.
Yeah, or maybe after.
Yeah.
Becomes just like a story. But yeah, well, one of the stories that helped me a lot back then was your story when you wanted to move to Guruji's bungalow.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Maybe, you know, if you can share it.
I don't know. Actually, I think I might have mentioned it in one of the podcasts. I can't remember. But the short version is that I was upset with him because he wasn't giving me the attention that I wanted. And then I went back to my room and I was just looking at my altar, kind of arguing with his picture. And then I made a prayer to God and I was like, you know, I'll accept an apology from you, but your apology should be that you let me live inside your bungalow. He had a bungalow with a basement at the time. And I was like, you know, I want to move into your basement because I know that there was like a space there in the corner for a bed. And so I was like, well, that would be an acceptable apology for, you know, the bad treatment that you've been giving me. And then as soon as I finished making that prayer in front of my altar, he calls me on the phone and he says, hey, do you want to come over for dinner? And I was like, sure. So I walk over to his bungalow for dinner. It's like a 1 minute walk from our place to his bungalow. And I get there and I ring the doorbell and he's already waiting for me at the door. He opens the door and he just looks at me and he says, no, you can't live in my basement, and just goes inside. The story goes on afterwards, but basically that was the short gist of it. And I just freak out like, oh, crap. But yeah, there's more to it.
Yeah, in many ways, crap, no? Because then you know that he knows what is going on inside.
It was full panic. I was panicking like crazy because I was thinking, well, if he heard that prayer, then he heard all the other ones too.
Yeah.
And then I start to think, not only does he hear the prayer, but I just literally had that conversation with him sitting in my room in front of the altar. And so it's like, damn, now I have to think of all the other stuff that I've been thinking, and I have to now be careful of what I'm about to think as I walk into his place for dinner. And so I'm sitting there at the table. I don't want to look at him. I'm just chanting Om Namo Narayana in my mind, just
Acting
to avoid
super weird.
avoiding to think anything that would, make me into a criminal. And then in the end, he said something super cool. He turns to me and he goes, what's wrong with you? And I said, Guruji, like, you just responded to my prayer in the room, like directly, like conversation paused, conversation resumed, right? When I stepped into your door. And now I'm freaking out a little bit because, and then he says to me, like in the most matter-of-fact way possible, he goes, and you think I just developed this ability now? And I was like, well, no, that's the problem. And he's like, but did I ever make it a problem? Like the fact that he could read my thoughts or hear my prayers or whatever, he's like, have I ever made a problem from that? Like, have I ever not accepted you as you are for that? Have I ever made drama because of it? And I had to factually admit, no, never. And he was like, then relax and eat your food. Like, it was just this point of, why are you allowing this to freak you out? Because the proof is the years that you've already spent with me, where I could see all the rubbish in your head and all the prayers you were making and all the words in anger that you were saying, life at God, at whatever. And the only attitude he gave me in return was to continue to invest in me as a person and to continue to help me. Oh. Like I said, the holding of the hand whilst, some other activities go on. And so it really was like a shock to the system of like, okay, you're right, just snap out of it. Because, and this is the thing that makes Guruji so different to everyone else. If someone else could read your mind, not only would you freak out, but it's just fear. Fear would take in, because what are they going to do with that information? Are they going to expose me? Are they going to expose me to other people? Are they going to tell people what I think about them? Like, there's so many ways that you can have your life controlled by that individual, ruined in some way or manipulated, or all these fears would come up. I often say in satsang, at that time, especially when I had that experience, I was sharing it, and I was asking people, what would you do if your husband, looking at the ladies, if your husband suddenly could read your mind? Vice versa. Matachis, what would you do if your husbands, what would you do if your wives could read your minds? And they were both looking at each other like just laughing. Some were in panic. Some were like divorce papers tomorrow. Like it was just all round chaos. Nobody was able to look at each other and say, yeah, no problem. Like nobody was just relaxed about that. Everyone was like, yeah, it would be terrible. And then I was saying, like, imagine if my mom knew everything that I was thinking when I was a kid. Imagine you can't hide anything from your parents. This is terrible. It's every kid's nightmare, right? So like, it was just all these nightmare scenarios pointing out. And then when you have the whole room contemplating these nightmare scenarios, you go, and you know how we can now just all relax because it's just fiction? No one here actually knows each other's minds, so we can all breathe. And they're like, yeah. I was like, except Guruji. He actually does. And he's proven it countless times. And none of that chaotic stuff that you're afraid of happened. None of that consequence that you're afraid of happened. Yeah. And isn't that amazing? That you can actually trust this individual, that he doesn't actually have any agenda. He's not exposing you. He's not humiliating you. He's not doing any of those things, despite knowing what's going on in there. And I think it's often been a powerful realization for people to realize that when we talk about unconditional love or trust, it's not as abstract as you think it is. You can concretely see it in practice when you meet someone that knows who you really are, not who you pretend to be and show the public for a nice image, but he knows who you really are, and he still smiles at you and says, I want you around, and I want to be in a relationship with you, guru-disciple.
Yeah. Yeah, if you compare that to a normal relationship, normally you come to someone, you show the best version of yourself, the other person show the best version of themselves.
And you pray to God you don't see anything else.
Yeah, and you try to sustain it as much as possible before the mask falls.
Sometimes it's years before you fart in front of each other, right? It's that kind of vibe.
or going to the toilet, or just, all the intimacy, all the mistakes, all like the aspect of the personality.
Fear of judgment. Fear of judgment, rejection, not being good enough, all of these things.
And also because when they start showing up, how much the other person hooks on that to make a problem out of it. No, because you are always like this. You always do this. That's this, normally the down on the relationships. At the beginning, everything is beautiful because everybody's playing the best cards.
Yeah.
And then the best cards are finished and you need to, be yourself. And then the judgment starts. Because it's true, from both sides. I think that's a super point for Guruji.
Agreed.
That knowing everything since the beginning, he just put it aside and he focused in what can help you to grow. Yeah. I think also when I got my experience on that, at the beginning I thought that Guruji had like an antenna, that he could read, in 50 meters distance. I heard your story and say, Swami Revat is
I don't live so far from him.
2 walls, like a Wi-Fi thing. But then I had an experience with Guruji around at least 200 meters away. I said, maybe he has a bigger antenna, or coincidence. And then I got this crazy experience when I was praying in my room and Guruji was in India. It's like 7,000 kilometers away. And I'm just like praying to Krishna and asking Krishna if he was with me, like in a very painful situation of my life. And Guruji answers from India with a text message, the stamp of Guruji style. Yes, with a heart, like 4 seconds after I did the prayer. And I didn't speak with Guruji every day and the conversation
was a normal
from,
exchange, right?
I checked, it's 4 months before, like the last message I exchanged with Guruji. 4 months before, about something completely different. And I received a message after my prayer of Guruji.
It often happens like that. I had when he was in Mauritius, one of these last few years for 3 months, I went maybe 2 months without speaking to him. Just randomly, like he wasn't writing, I wasn't writing, and it wasn't any issue. And then I had some problem. I had to go to the doctor to get a scan. And I was a little like, I just did a quick prayer to Guruji, like, help me, make sure everything's fine. And I hadn't told anybody. And then he just calls me. Like, he just calls me. He's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, where are you? And I was like, I'm at the hospital. And he was just like, why? And I started to tell him everything. And he was just like, great, it'll all be fine. And then I said, why did you call? Did you want something? And he's like, no. I just randomly started thinking of you. And then he smiles at me, like winks a little bit and leaves. And that's it. But it was a video call,
Yeah.
So these kind of things happen quite often. I've had moments where he was halfway across the world and I'm praying to him, or because prayer, I think sometimes people can be a little bit misleading. for me, prayer is just conversation, like to just have a conversation with God, right? With Guru, God. And so I was sitting there in my room, just talking with Guruji, sharing about my day and having a sort of exchange, but it's a one-sided exchange. I don't hear the voice inside. And I'm talking, and then he calls me, and he just continues the conversation from the sentence that I stopped. He just calls me and says, like, yeah, but, like, there's not even like a hi, how are you? What are you thinking? He just picks up. He says, yeah, but you have to think from this point of view, Revati. If you do like that, then, it's going to be problematic for whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know how to react. Like, now, am I supposed to say, hi, Guruji, how are you? Or just continue the conversation like this is the most normal thing ever, These kind of things are
Yeah, do you remember
what do you do with it,
the movie What They Want with Mel Gibson?
Women want.
What women want, yeah. And then he
Classic.
just, at some point, he goes into this room full of women, and then he starts going crazy because he starts listening all the thoughts. And I saw Guruji sometimes when it's too crowded, also he tends to...
He doesn't like big crowds.
No.
He doesn't like the big crowds. I mean, he can manage it, but it's true. He's not... And I asked him before, and he's like, yeah, but you feel everything. He's like, you hear more, see more, feel more. It's a different... He doesn't complain. It's not like he can't do it, but it's just like there's a notable difference in the experience. Right?
Yeah. I think in a way the downside of this, or at least for me back then, was a patch, because I didn't have this strong connection with him. So I was using the experiences as a patch on the way to help me continue the trip. But inevitably, at some point I start comparing why I don't have the experiences,
of course,
that Swami Revati has. No, Swami Revati has manifested Lord Narsingha from Guruji's heart, and since the moment I heard the story, I was thinking, okay, when is mine coming? And and of course you get a ring, but the other has a bigger ring, or I don't know,
this is
not in a silly way, but
no,
you start comparing
100%.
Experiences, because also I thought
everybody does it.
I guess it's natural, yeah.
But, but I've tried to teach this to people before. Like, they'll look at me and they'll say the same thing, like, oh, it's easy for you to talk about these things. You're so privileged, like we're jealous of so many things. And I said to them, please, don't make the mistake to think that it's not an endless loop of jealousy. Like, you're jealous of what I have, and then I'll look and be like, but that one, I got to go for one trip with Guruji, that one went for two. Right? Yeah. Everybody has something that they look at, because it's not to do with anything rational, logical. We're all wonderfully looked after. We all have everything we need for our spiritual growth, in a sense. It's not that the ring being bigger or smaller is going to change your life. It's just the natural programming of the ego. And it's like, as long as you think that I still have an active ahamkar, I have an active ego, then this is going to go on. So I reassure people, you're going to be silly until you're not. You're going to be mundane until you're holy. You're going to be a normal person until you're a saint. And it's like, up until the very moment you become a transcended individual, right? You can expect that there will still be, in moments, stupid behavior, stupid emotions, stupid thoughts, whatever it may be. That's the definition of not being fully in control, right? So it's like, it's just expectation management, but it is a normal thing. I feel it, you feel it. It is what it is.
Yeah, or also the misconception that if you have more spiritual experience or more miracles in your life, is because you are closer to God.
It's so easy to flip that. It's because you're more sick. You need more of them. It's like, but then also you can play the game too much in that direction. Oh, these people that have all this proximity to Guruji, it's because they need it, because they're so sick people, Yeah. But that also becomes the weapon of the person that's trying to deal with their jealousy, right? Yeah. But it goes in reverse also. Oh, I'm close to Guruji, I'm the best. And so really, once you start to play these games, you understand none of this really is a measure on your level. It's like each one gets what they need. And now, why do you need it? For what? For what outcome? You don't know these things. It's not so clear. And so better to just stay out of these games as much as possible of comparison. And then the experiences have this double-edged effect. On the one hand, they can be really inspirational, faith-building, this dopamine rush, whatever you want to call it. They can really be great. On the other hand, they can really sometimes mess people up. Like, I remember moments when Guruji told me off for sharing too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, talking about that, actually, I was one day in Mauritius with him around 3 years ago. And one couple show up the Guruji was giving darshan. And this couple show up the first time. They wait until the end. They spoke with Guruji. And Guruji, they came because a friend of them was about to die, or they were about to cut his leg because of some medical issue. And I cannot say it because Guruji, I will explain later why, but Guruji did something for them.
Yeah.
A miracle. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited about it that I went to my Facebook. I wrote the story. I put a picture of the miracle that I saw. And around 1 hour later, I don't know how, someone told to Guruji or whatever, Guruji called me and he said, look, Aditya, I really appreciate your willingness, your enthusiasm, your willingness to share, to bring me to the world. But please delete the post because we'll bring people with the wrong intentions. He said, if I would like crowds, I can do it myself very easily.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not here for that.
Actually, I need to interrupt you there because you're touching now on what I think is probably the most important point in connection with experiences, which is we can sit here for 3-4 hours plus and just tell stories, experiences with Guruji, from the more normal to the more extraordinary, from, funny to emotional, all kinds of things. And the problem is then you'll have people who will walk away and say, that's why they're following this guru, because of show, because of miracles, because of his powers. But Vaishnavas have nothing to do with that. Vaishnavas don't care about powers. We care about love for God. Okay, so let me then address this very clearly, okay? We don't follow Guruji because we're interested in powers. Guruji is not making powers available. He is not teaching us how to have powers. He's not teaching us how to manifest things or whatever. And neither are we here because we want to learn to do that. It has nothing to do with this. We are here to have faith in God, to love God, to connect to God, to serve God, 100%. The Vaishnava mindset is there. It's to love God, to serve God, to connect with God. He does what he needs to do to challenge our minds and simultaneously to build faith. So sometimes he does do these things because he can. So it's like if he's somebody who's capable of doing those miracles and he can do it to A, help a situation, and B, challenge an ego that is in a comfort zone, and C, boost faith in the individual. Sometimes all three at the same time. Sometimes one or the other, whatever it may be. Should he say, oh no, I better not, because then if I do that, people are going to say that I'm a mystic, I'm a yogi, not really a Vaishnava, and my devotees might get the wrong impression. Then, so he should not use the tools at his disposal to help us because of what other people might think. Then he's not fit to be a guru. He's not fit because he's actually not invested in doing whatever it takes to help you. He's going to first care about his image in the eyes of the public, and then once that's taken care of, he might help you with the leftovers of what's available. Right? And that's not somebody I can trust with my life because he's not committed to me, he's committed to his reputation and his image. So when you tell a story like that, and I've had those conversations with him multiple times, I love it because so what he's doing is he's trying to solve both. So he's still doing these things. And then he says, but don't publicize it. Don't put it on the internet. Don't do this, that, or the other, because I'm not trying to make a show. And I'm not trying to attract people because of the show. Now, do I feel like all Bhakti Marga devotees always understand that line? No. I think sometimes innocently, naively, I'm not saying it's with any bad intention whatsoever, but sometimes I think the devotees miss this point and they're excited, right? And they just say, look at this amazing thing he did, look at this, look at that. And they fail to put it in a context of what is it that he's really trying to achieve here. He's not trying to impress the public with a magic trick. He's saying, I'm trying to get you to surrender your life to God, to love Krishna, to love God. And if I'm going to need to overcome your obstacles by shocking your ego, by pushing you out of your comfort zone, or sometimes by answering that prayer that says, I just need a sign, I need some proof, I need something to show me that this isn't real, that it is not just living in books, it's not just abstract. And he has the ability to do it, then why wouldn't he? Yeah. Somebody once criticized. They said to me, why does he need to make Shiva lingams, for example, on Shivaratri? It's just, it attracts criticism, right? And I said, sure does. A, We don't publish it. We're not making a big drama out of it, okay? It's something that happens for whoever has to happen. But B, and more importantly, because what if Shiva wants to bless that person? What if Guruji is able to commune with Shiva in that sense and say, well, Shiva wants to give a blessing to this individual. He's like, oh no, I better not do it. Because Johnny Das on the internet reading this is going to think, oh, that's not proper. And then Shiva goes, oh, well, if Johnny thinks that, then I'm really, I can't bless this devotee. I don't want to be, manifest as a lingam for him to serve. I don't want him to have some kind of relationship or whatever it may be. And it gets to a point where it's a little bit comical. The level to which there is what's it called? A policing of what you can and cannot do in order to be considered to be legit and good, well-behaved guru.
That's so bizarre.
And I go, if you study history, even the history of Vaishnavism, take Ramanujacharya, take Madhvacharya, take Nityananda Prabhu, for example, often they had behaviors that went against their authorities at the time, against their gurus, against societal norms. Yeah. But that's in the history books. That's not here and now in front of my eyes. That's the problem.
I don't need to cope to accept that. Yeah.
Back then, problem. Yeah. Same thing you have in Christianity. Jesus is alive, everybody has a problem with him.
Yeah.
Kill him. Now he's dead, wonderful. I mean, the Catholic Church has a policy on canonizing saints only after they're dead.
Yeah.
And you think, well, why is that? It's to avoid the risk that you label someone a saint and then they say something against you.
Yeah.
So it's better you assess the full life of the individual before you give them the rubber stamp of approval, like, yeah, saint. Because what if the church says, oh, yeah, this is a saint, and then 2 years later the person says, yeah, I don't like the church.
Yeah.
I think the church is corrupt. Then they go,
then you
just basically showed that you're incompetent and you have no clue because you gave the stamp to someone who now says you're not legit. And so it's like we have this anxiety to never validate living people. You cannot validate a living being because it's too risky. What will he do tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right? Better you wait till they die and then you can sing their glories. Don't worship them when they're alive, but when they're dead, put them a picture on the altar and worship every day, puja.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway.
Yeah,
I don't want to go too far off.
But well, in that sense, I think for being canonized, you need at least 2 or 4 proven miracles or something like this. And I'm thinking I recorded so far, with Shrestha, that is there behind the camera, at least 300 testimonies.
Convince him to get on this podcast, by the way.
He's a very difficult case.
I need to talk to him on the podcast.
Yeah. Maybe he feels some pressure now to say yes. Okay, maybe not. Shrestha is unpressurable.
We go on. So you were saying you were recording with him.
So we record, at least we have a catalog of 300 people who we film. Yeah. Each person we film normally is like 2, 3, 5, some people, many experiences. So of miracle, like crazy things. And at the same time, Guruji, he don't want people to come because of the miracles.
True.
But at the same time, he's asking his devotees to share his experiences. And I think how to navigate in these two seemingly opposites.
What is your solution to that? I have mine, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what is the right balance?
Let's see. When we film someone, we ask for the miracles. We go to the bomb, the atomic bomb of the story. That is in a way a beginning or after. Mm-hmm. That you cannot be the same after that experience with him. Mm-hmm. People who has cancer get healed. People who is going to lose the leg, they get healed. Mm-hmm. People who... what we focus is, okay, this happened, but what happened to the person after? What is the transformation? What is the relationship with God before and after? What is the trust in life before and after? How is the way they deal with challenge before and after? So the miracle becomes a supplementary component in the spiritual path of the person. Mm-hmm. Like could be knowledge, like could be music, like could be miracles. I see it as a leg or as a
crutch
that helps the person to transform to that the guru is actually wanting for the person. Because you see, look, as I say, I recorded 300 testimonies. That means I heard maybe more than 1,000 miracles with Guruji, but I cannot say that I'm surrendered to God.
Yeah,
you have read so many books, but then to claim, I don't know for you, or someone, any person who studies a lot, can they claim that they are surrendered to God?
No.
Musicians,
Don't worry,
the
I'm not
best
claiming.
musicians. No, in case
Yeah.
I don't know. Musicians.
Yeah.
So I think experiences, I put it on that position. Like other things helps the people, the individuals, to transform and to change into having a life of 100% trust in God.
I agree with you. I think that the balance is Guruji wants the experiences to be told to show the transformative power in people's lives that Guru, God, that all these things have in their life, because he cares about the people. And so what people want is they want to change. They want to improve. They want to realize who they are. They want to, all of this. And so the stories have to be told because it's the stories of transformation of the people. It's not just, hey, this miracle happened and I saw it. No, the real crux of it is this miracle happened and it caused this to happen in me, like the transformation, the improvement, or the whatever the transcendence, whatever the realization is I think the most important part. Because the other side of how it could be done, which is the wrong side according to my own observation of him, is tell everyone the stories in order to glorify me. Right? So that I appear more glorious and I appear more worshipable and I appear to be more this, that, and the other. And there, I think, is where he constantly says, no, don't.
Yeah.
I don't want that. And so it's like, for some people, they haven't yet got that. And I'm happy that we're on the same page, because I think this is where sometimes I have this feeling, maybe a bitter taste is too strong, but sometimes people share stories and I'm listening to it and I'm like, why is it not resonating with me in a nice way? And then I feel it's because they're using it as a cheap way to attempt to glorify him, to say, look how amazing he is. He made this happen. He changed the weather. Look, he's amazing. And I go, yeah, but do you not feel how lacking of substance that story is? Like,
especially for a devotee.
Yeah, but also how will a public person hear that and they just go, oh, okay, well, what am I supposed to make of that? Whereas when you sit there and say, he answered to my conversation, or I was having doubts, and then about whether I'm good enough for Krishna or whatever, and he writes to me, yes, without ever having spoken to him about it. And like, it's a different kind of thing, because then it's about showing that the divine is there for you, that there is contact, that there is two-way communion, there is relationship. When you pray, it's not an empty thing that you're doing. Like, it has more impactful meaning than just, oh, he made a fancy ring, or he did this, that, or the other. And so it's like, these things happen, and I've seen thousands of things like this, but I tend not to tell them because I know they're not going to actually serve any greater purpose in that moment, and that's fine. I think Guruji is completely fine with that also. He's not trying to make a show out of everything we've got going on.
Yeah, look, in that sense, I remember when I just became brahmachari, shortly after, for some reason I started thinking I want him to manifest me some red earrings. And I don't know, sometimes the
Before
mind,
you were Rishi, the red was already there.
I got the feelings, it seems, the connection with the cloth. The seed starts to awake. And I'm thinking, I want some red earrings. And the thought just goes on the whole day, unknowingly. Yeah. And we are down in the big tent of events, thousands of people. Guruji is walking away from the event. Mm-hmm. And I'm there, and this is in my mind. I want you to manifest me some red earrings, Guruji. And he's passing by. He stops. He turns to me and he said, why? Is it your birthday? And walks away. And just that, and that shows me, in the other hand, it's a miracle. Yes, it's a miracle because he reads the mind. But it's not about reading the mind. It's how much he can know how to deal with the situation, how much he shows me how he knows me, what is going on. It's a different way
of relating, right?
And also his personality, that is what I'm attracted to. His way of dealing with life, with people, the way he reacts. I remember on almost the same days was Hina. And Guruji came out and he manifested.
Hina's birthday, you mean? Or
I don't know. I don't remember
no,
which celebration. I think it was
January.
Navaratri.
No, then it's
time.
not that.
But was at night or afternoon. He's coming out of the tent. Hina is there. And Guruji manifested a ring for her. So I think she was pregnant or she just had birth. So the ring was small for her finger. You were there on the first row with Somekash.
It was Suba, wasn't it?
Ah, Suba.
It was Suba.
Ah, okay. I was on the second line. I was just behind you. And do you remember what happened? Yeah. What did he say? Or what happened on the...
Well, he took the ring and he blew on it.
Yeah, and what happened after?
It fit.
It fit.
He made the ring, it was too small, and then she was like, sorry, and he's like, oh, and he kind of like almost had this annoyed look of like, I got it wrong, and he takes it.
And it gets bigger and it fits. And so it's about, he can blow rings and make them bigger. No, it's not about that. Obviously, it's not about that. It's
who cares?
His compassion, his love for the devotee who is coming there to see him, to, don't worry, like I adapt to you, you don't need to adapt to me.
That's a nice way of looking at it.
Another one that I really like is, it will come out soon. I will not spoil it too much, but basically it's a woman, the devotee of Guruji, and she loves to, every time she can, to go out at night and look at the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So they're having this gathering with friends, and Guruji is visiting them. I think it was not here, it was in a different country, maybe Belgium or South Africa, in South Africa. And she's outside alone, enjoying what she loves the most, that is look at the sky at night. And she felt something. She turns and Guruji is standing next to her. And Guruji asked her, what are you looking at? And she said, I'm looking at the sky. What do you see? And she said, well, I look at these shiny little things and the dark background. And Guruji asked her, no, look proper. What do you see? And he touched her arm. And then she could see like a three-dimensional portal, is how she described it, that it forms on the sky, within 3 dimensions, like stars going in, like a perfect symbol, like a geometrical figure stuck on the sky with this 3 dimension. And Guruji says that's like a gateway of the universe, or a stargate. And then he said, and look at that one, and another one forms like on the other side. And he said, and that's another, but smaller. And from this story, because of course, oh wow, he can give you the vision to see things that you cannot perceive with your normal eyes. Yeah, maybe he can. Right. But the most beautiful thing on this story is that she said, Guruji picked on the thing that I love the most. So now every time I'm going out to look at the sky, I'm thinking on him.
That's Krishna chapter 10 of the Gita, right? So like Arjuna asks him, what can I contemplate on in this material world? And then he starts listing all these things and equating them to him. So it's like, I am this amongst that, I am this amongst that. And then I remember someone in the class asked me like, why does he really do that? It just seems weird, like a weird list of things. Like you could just say, focus on me. And then I was like, but the answer is obvious. Because if it's just focus on Krishna, you can do that once your mind is sufficiently attracted, once you're fully like connected, there's a relationship there. But this is just a shortcut to getting to that point. It's like, let me list all the nice things that you like to appreciate in life, the best of everything, and then say, that's me. That means that every time you go and look at the best the world has to offer, you'll think of Krishna. You won't think of competition to Krishna. Because in the end, it's that. It's like things are competing for your attention. Things are competing for your awareness. And so it's like the master stroke of God is to equate himself with all those things that you are attracted to. And so similarly, Guruji always says, don't run away from the world, but bring God into the things you do. Like bring God into your life rather than sort of living a dual life as such. And I always found it for the same reason. He's making you think more about Guru and God when you're doing your everyday mundane stuff, because it's the shortcut to bhakti, to smarana bhakti, right? To thinking about God. If you don't do that, then you reserve him only for your altar. Then you're living 95% of your life without him. And then you finish your day and you go and sit in front of the altar and then you're spiritual for 5 minutes, Okay. It's just a weaker form of spirituality.
Yeah. Look, also, in the other hand, I think these miracles for the person who is listening to them, that is not the member of the story, is not the owner of the story. Yeah. Sometimes also, or a downside is that you hear the glories of the Sadguru, and then in the moment that you need to relate to him in the human way, that is the scenario that he's offering to people, there is this like it plays against that, because you cannot just relax as it happens to you on that dinner, and he's too majestic,
It forces you to take a position sometimes.
Yeah, but not I would say, or that's my understanding, not a healthy position. But on the other hand, so what I'm trying to say is, you hear some crazy and amazing things about him, that when you have him in front of you, you cannot relate to him as he's offering you to, you know,
Yeah.
because he wants to. For example, a weird things that I have is Guruji comes and he asks me, "How are you?" And I just stay quiet many times. I don't even answer. And inside of my mind it was playing. He already knows everything. I don't even need to speak to him because he knows what I'm going through. And sometimes you need to play.
It's not a play. I've gone through this process myself, and this is my realization, at least. Take it for whatever it's worth. I had that dilemma inside of me years and years ago where it was like, he knows me. He knows what's true. He knows what's not true. He knows how I feel. He knows the whole thing. And then sometimes he'll ask me for my opinion about something.
Yeah.
Or he'll ask me how I am. Or he'll say, did you do this? Or I heard someone say that you did this like wrong thing or whatever, and it's not even true. Like, and then of course the dilemma plays in your mind of like, why is he asking if he knows everything? Should I defend myself now? And I've tried that version of like, you know, anyway. And he never liked that kind of answer. He generally doesn't like that type of answer. And then you think, well, why? And then the answer clicked for me, because Vaishnavism, or what we're trying to do, is relationship. Everything is relationship. Life is a relationship with the whole, with God, with everything. Mm. This path is relational. And so if he engages with me and I disengage in return, I'm not engaging in relationship. Therefore, I'm not engaging with the entire point of everything in life. I'm literally rejecting the purpose of life. The purpose of life is for me to relate with God. It's not about whether God needs it or doesn't need it, whether he knows or doesn't know. It's choice. It's all choices. He chooses to engage with me. Not because he's forced to, not because he's compelled by ignorance. And he says, how are you? Because he doesn't know. No, he's engaging with me for an exchange. So he says, how are you? And I offer something in exchange by saying, I'm well. Or I tell my truth, not because he doesn't know it, but because we're now exchanging gifts, right? It's an act of relationship. And so in that moment, I understood that the interactions that he often creates for us are not being done for any reason but to create bahana. Bahana means an excuse, almost, for relationship to occur. Because he could sit in his bungalow and never leave and say, I'll give darshan every day to everybody. I don't need to physically go and touch you. And I will look after you all. Jai Gurudev. Enjoy the rest of your life.
Finish.
Just trust that I'm looking after you. And based off of all the miracles that you've heard and I've heard and the testimonies that we're giving about him hearing us halfway across the world, it would be a legitimate position to take. And we would have to conclude that it's real. Yes, he is looking after us and he's going to give darshans and all those things. And maybe we won't feel them, but he'll be doing them. But no, he chooses to get on the plane, travel all the way around the world, SMS, phone people, because it's relationship.
Yeah.
It's
Bhakti,
an exchange. No? Yeah.
Expression of
love. Bhakti in action. Bhakti expressed creates love, creates relationship. It's the whole point of everything. We're trying to perfect that relationship. We're trying to purify that relationship. We're trying to make that happen without the jealousy, without the condemnation, the judgments and the fears and all that other stuff that gets in the way, selfishness and whatever else. But you know, sorry to go on a little bit, but these stories, when I hear them, obviously nowadays I hear them with a very different ear than I used to in the beginning. Right? You were telling you were hearing a lot of stories in the beginning and they were like somehow helpful. You know, you reach a point, I think, where some stories still, you go, wow. But some of them you're like, yeah, it's normal.
The skin becomes thicker.
Something like that. But what I really love and what really still to this day touches me is when you hear enough stories, when you see a pattern, you see the real Guruji. You learn who he truly is, not who he presents himself as being. Because I believe that who he presents himself as being is a version of himself, but it's not the most, let's say, profound version of who he is, or the most authentic version. And the reason that it's not the most authentic version is because when he's presenting himself in public, he's not presenting himself to one person. He's presenting himself to everyone at the same time. And everyone has different needs. And so he has to be as neutral to all those needs and positions as possible at the same time. And so it's a different version of him. Now, he's still incredibly impactful and all those sorts of things. But I see that in public, in the wider public eye, he often engages in what I call culture management. So his behavior is always thinking, how is this going to have an impact on the wider culture of my movement, of the people observing my movement, etc. He pays attention to it, and it conditions his behavior in public, right? But on a one-on-one level, which is when most of these experiences happen, on a personal level, he is only responding to that individual. He's not responding to the 50 other people that are in the room normally when he gives a satsang, right? And so it's like, I'll give you an example. Let's say that there's a rule made, and the rule in the ashram is nobody can make noise after 10. Now that's the public rule that he makes for everybody, universally. And then one person will come to him and say, Guruji, I have some work I want to do after 10, it's important, whatever else. And to that person, he might say, it's okay, you can do it. You can make the noise or whatever it may be. Now, an immature person would look at that and think, well, he's broken the rule. It's hypocrisy. Or it's favoritism. That individual got a different rule. But it's not. All it is he's looking at that individual's circumstances and reality and saying, is this person to be trusted or not? Because the rules are not a law of the universe. The rules are guidelines that exist to point us in the right direction. But that's because you have to make a rule for everybody. But how do you do that if there's a community of like very mature devotees and very immature devotees in one? It's hard. So you have to make one general rule, and maybe the mature devotees will feel like, is that rule really necessary for me? Aren't I beyond that stuff? And the answer probably is yes. You are probably, not affected by these things.
Yeah.
But the rule is still there because you also have to set the example for the other ones. It's culture management. And so Guruji is very, I got the right story to tell, to explain this. There was a brahmachari living in the ashram, and he had some problems with his brahmacharihood, in the sense that he was contemplating leaving. He was struggling with a lot of thoughts and desires and whatever. He hadn't done anything. He hadn't broken any vows or anything, but he was struggling mentally, right? And he went to Guruji and he asked him for help. But he told some people that he was going to go to Guruji and ask for help. He didn't just do it one-on-one, him and Guruji. He made a big deal out of it. He told people, I'm going to speak to Guruji. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And he asks Guruji, can you help me, please? I'm struggling with this, that, and the other. And Guruji says, it's better you're not a brahmachari anymore. Directly. And in the end, he accepted that, whatever. But there was this feeling of him like, why did he not help? Why did he just directly say, okay, you're not a brahmachari anymore? There was that question in the air. And of course, I said to him, like, look, maybe this was the help. The help was to get you out of this directly because it wasn't working. Who knows? But I spoke to Guruji afterwards. And he exposed his culture management system to me. He said, if I tell him, it's okay to have those thoughts, it's okay to have all of that going on, don't worry, it's okay, don't beat yourself up, basically. Just go on and everything will be fine. Yeah. I have to be aware, and I am aware, that he's going to go and tell everybody. Because he already told them he was going to go speak to me, so then he will tell them what I said, right? And he said, this is the big problem sometimes in the guru-disciple relationship. I'm sometimes incapable of leading an individual disciple because you're all too excited to tell everyone. So that means I have to always think that what I'm going to tell you is going to reach more ears than it probably should. Right? So I actually can't customize so much to your individual circumstance. So because I knew this guy was going to tell everybody, I had to tell him, better you're not a brahmachari then. Because otherwise what he'll do is, he'll go and tell them all with a smile on his face, guys, if you're struggling with your brahmacharihood and just thinking all kinds of rubbish stuff, it's fine. Guruji said it's no problem at all. And some idiot out of context is going to hear that and go, oh, okay, well then I can relax and just be much more liberal about these things and not try to be more disciplined and not try to stay away from those things because it's fine, right? As long as I don't break the vow, I can sit here and think about it all day, right?
Yeah.
Which is not okay.
And it goes against his own spiritual path. Yeah.
Right, because it may be that for one of the individuals, it will pass. It was just a passing wind, like it's not an actual problem, yeah? It was just a momentary thing, and it's like it's something that's disturbing you, but it's on its way out of your body, out of your system. Like you have something deep inside. He's bringing it up, and when it's at the surface, it appears like it's a big monster, but it's actually about to leave you, right? So Guruji can see that, and he maybe says, "Don't worry about it; it will pass quickly." But then that person will tell someone, and the monster's still down here, it's not up here. And so then they go, oh, great. And then they start to relax about it, and the monster just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's culture management. So the public Guruji is very different often to the private Guruji. And so when I hear these stories, what I love is that you start to find out who Guruji really is. Because in public, what does he do? He wears the fancy red clothes, he wears the jewelry, he comes in his golf cart. He does all these things that we know is to provoke people, is to challenge people's minds, to do whatever. But then sometimes you think, is there ever a time when he's a little more sweet or a bit more personal or a bit more this or a bit more that? And all I say is, keep your ears open and talk to people.
Yeah.
The things I've seen, Aditya. You know, one time a person said to me, he seems a bit selfish, Guruji. And I said, on what basis do you say that? Well, he encourages people to serve him. And I said, And do you think he doesn't serve them in return? Because then it's not serving him, it's he encourages people to engage in relationship. It's not the same thing. Do you not see him serving them in return? And they said, And I said, then you're not looking hard enough. Fair enough. I understand why you think the way you do, but you're not looking hard enough. And I started to talk to them, and I started to tell them. I said, I see him from morning till night, responding to people's messages on his phone, talking to people, calling people. And you know what he hears from them? Oh, you're the best, I love you, you're amazing, to flatter his ego. No, he has to listen to people, basically, just talking about their worst problems, their worst fears, cancer, illnesses, begging him in tears for help all day, every day. Constantly, everyone putting their hopes on him. Please help me. Please save me. Please whatever. And then if anything goes wrong, everyone blames him. It's all your fault. You didn't help. You didn't save. You didn't this. And he constantly accepts this role. Year after year, day after day. I've seen him travel by car, by plane, in whatever capacity, hours, it doesn't matter what time of the day, to go visit a sick devotee or to go to be with someone who needed him. And he doesn't make a show of it. There are no photos on social media. There's no one knows about it.
Yeah.
And no one would even know.
Sometimes.
And he's like, I don't want people to know. It's got nothing to do with anybody.
Yeah.
This is just me caring for my devotee.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a super point, because one of the things that pushed me so much to go behind the experiences is this. I have the feeling that the bar that Guruji puts, the Sadguru Mahamaya, that he puts, is so high. As we say, he likes to challenge. In public, he behaves in ways that normally, is difficult from my point of view, that people see the sweetness and the caring that he has for them.
Sometimes, yeah.
If you only judge from what is going on outside. Mm-hmm. Because you can say, the fancy car or the jewels or people serving. If you judge that from the outside without knowing. So the experiences for me gives this, as you were saying. I will not say it moves the curtain, but it helps a bit the people to see the sweetness and the caring that the Sadguru has for, and I will not say his disciples nor his devotees, but for many people.
Yeah.
Because family of devotees, they got blessings from Guruji, even sometimes without knowing. So the experience for me has this component of helping the people to know behind the veil the sweetness of Guruji.
And I think that's the most, there I'm with you in giving so much importance to experiences, because it's how you get to know the real person, like the real Guruji, if that makes sense. I know you can't fully know or understand, you can't fully understand a person like Guruji. I think you can know him, but you can't understand necessarily. But I think the exercise of recording, collecting experiences is so fundamental, because you look, the Bible, the New Testament primarily, is an account of the life of Jesus. It's not so much only his teachings, it's what he did. When you look at, in Vaishnavism, something like a Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example, which is such a cornerstone for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's an account of the life and sayings and activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If that was not being recorded, if people weren't saying, this is what he said to me, this is what he did, this is what I saw. We don't have a camera in the room to capture everything back in those days, right? So either people are sharing or it's lost forever. You'll never know the pastimes of these persons.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of it is that the more you know the intricacies of the whole bouquet of their life, not just the Guruji that was seen in public events, not just the Guruji of Europe from year X to year X, but the whole range, the whole life, all kinds of experiences, private, public, in Asia, in Europe, in America, wherever. Yeah. Once you piece that all together, you get this wonderful depth. It deepens your understanding of everything, your understanding of his spiritual life, of him, of who actually is your guru.
Yeah.
Is he a guy who sits there and says wise words sitting under a tree? It's like, no. Yeah. He is the architect of the devotees' lives. Like he goes in there, he helps them through every possible experience. And you wouldn't know that except for stories, except for the testimonies, right? The testimonies of people's transformations, of people's relationships with him. So in that sense, I think the seva you're doing is incredibly important.
Yeah. But in that sense, Swami, where do you put this? Because, for example, one of the testimonies we have is from many people around the one saint from Vrindavan, Murali Das Babaji.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened there is, rewind to the moment of this story or the experience. 3 months before, the saint is sick. He's in his bed, laying down on the bed. He rarely opened the eyes. A few devotees of Bhakti Marga comes to visit another saint that is just next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to know about Murali Das Babaji, and they are invited. They go. In the moment they come in the room, the saint opened the eyes, called them closer, and he whispered to them, Sri Swami Vishwananda, Sri Swami Vishwananda, Sri Swami Vishwananda.
Mm-hmm.
The saint never met Guruji. The saint never met these devotees. They go away. 3 months later, now, the day of the experience, Guruji goes to visit the other saint.
Next to him.
Mm-hmm. So the devotees of the saint who is sick, of Murari, they invite Guruji to visit the place where he is.
Mm-hmm.
Guruji goes, he visits him, he touched the feet of the saint, like holding his feet. And then he walks down, he accepts prasad from the temple priest of the Murali Das Babaji ashram. Mm-hmm. In the moment Guruji finished the prasad, the disciples run down and they tell that the Guru passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Guruji goes up again. He's with Swami Parantapa, with Rishi Aditya, Aradhaka. Like there were many people witnessing this situation. And while Guruji is looking at the saint who just left, the disciple of Murali Das Babaji starts screaming, Mahapurusha, Mahapurusha, looking at Guruji. Mahapurusha, Mahapurusha, Mahapurusha. The devotees who are there start speaking with the devotees of Murali Das, and they told them that, I think it was 40 years ago, the guru of Murali Das told him, stay in Vrindavan, that Krishna will come to liberate you. They go away, the situation stays there. We have a private conversation with Guruji after and Rishi Sambhava. And we asked Guruji if he would share something of what happened in that moment. Mm-hmm. And Guruji shared a few stuff, but the only one I am allowed to share is, he said, I asked him if he wanted to stay or if he wanted to leave.
Murali Das Babaji.
Murali Das Babaji. And he answered, I want to leave. So, because we were saying Guruji comes for his devotees, and where do you put this of, in which aspect of Guruji he comes and he also take care of people that he have never seen in his life, but because of the devotion they have to Krishna, he pick up that call?
Well, look, obviously this is something I think actually it's good that you're mentioning, because we can talk about the wider issue here, which is when you have affinity, affection for a particular guru, person, path, you're always going to see the miracles that happened around your path and around your guru in the lens of your guru, like from the perspective of your guru is the cause, your guru is involved. Like it's a very, and your own miracles in your own sampradaya are far more, let's say, important and special. And the ones outside of your sampradaya, either we ignore them because we don't really know what to do with it, or we may accept them, but it's like, oh yeah, nice, interesting. And so I think sometimes there are these challenges of bias. Yeah. So I'll give you an example with this. Guruji, and the way you've told the story, it seems very clear that we're insinuating that Guruji is the Krishna figure that comes and liberates Murali Das Babaji. Now, if I was a disciple of Murali Das Babaji, hearing that, and I wasn't in the room that day, I wasn't in that experience of seeing Guruji Mahapurusha or hearing Murali Das Babaji say this to the disciples of Guruji, chanting Sri Swami Vishwananda, etc., I could easily get offended, right? I would easily say, what are these Bhakti Marga people claiming that their guru came to liberate our guru or whatever? Yeah, and I understand that is like something that is unsolvable in some sense because of affinity, because of affection, and because we don't have as individuals the vision to know what's really going on. Yeah, we just heard a version of it. Yeah. And our version is accepted by us because Guruji is our authority. So he says what he saw, what happened, and we take it. But someone outside, they're not going to say Swami Vishwananda is a pramana for me. What he says, just because you said it, that's what happened, that doesn't mean that that's what happened. And I think it's just historically been a problem, and it will always be a problem across all traditions. Look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If I speak to a Gaudiya Vaishnava, they are working from the assumption that Chaitanya is Krishna incarnate. Radha Krishna incarnate, unquestionably so. I mean, it would be ludicrous to even challenge that, right? And therefore, any miracles attributed to him, to his associates or whatever, they're just true. Were they there to see them? No. But, our acharyas say it, so it's true. But because they already have affinity and respect for them. Now, it so happens that I agree that Chaitanya was Krishna incarnate. I have no problem with that. It so happens that I agree. But at the time of Chaitanya and his disciples, there were plenty of other Vaishnavas in the world, in Vrindavan even, and in surrounding areas, that were told the same stories. Chaitanya did this, Chaitanya did that. He was born with signs on his feet, he was this, he was that. They didn't accept. They didn't believe in that way. Now, I'm not saying that they necessarily disrespect it, but it's like, could be true, could not, I don't know. I have my own thing, and then some maybe convert and some maybe actually disrespect by saying, no, it sounds like some made up stuff. I feel like it's perpetually going on, and it's a thing we have to start to think about if we want to move forward as a wider family. Like, we have to start to think about how we speak about these things to other people, how we understand the presence of God outside of our own movement also. Because, for example, I may believe Guruji is God, but I don't believe he's exclusively God. Meaning that God is therefore never touching anyone else's lives except through Guruji, and that God is not accessible through any means but through Guruji. Like, I'm not holding those beliefs. So if someone tells me that they're striving for the grace of God in another sampradaya, whatever it may be, great. Yeah, no problem. And so I think that the issue here is when we have a story like that, I would have a problem with us telling that story in public, because I would have a problem with the same story being told in reverse. Uh-huh. If one day Guruji were to leave his body, and on that day we had a guest Swami visiting our ashram, and then their disciples starts publishing videos online saying, our Swami came to liberate Paramahamsa Vishwananda.
Exactly, yeah.
I would sit there and go like, sorry, what now? But I have to recognize in myself the emotional bias, because the truth is, as much as I think that wouldn't be true, I don't know. I actually don't know. This is all just based on my convictions, my feeling, whatever else. I have very strong convictions about who Guruji is. And if he is who I believe he is, and I have the position I have defended, then naturally I'm going to see his interaction with other individuals from that lens. Yeah? So that makes sense. But I have to have enough maturity about me to realize that others who may see their guru in the same way that I see mine are going to see their interactions with Guruji from the exact opposed lens, the opposite lens. You see my point there?
Yeah.
And so then it's like, I remember actually this was a funny one. Murali Das Babaji, right, who's a friend of ours and we've had many lovely interactions with over the years. I consider him a friend. You know, I remember at the very beginning of our relationship, Guruji's relationship with him, there was some Bhakti Marga devotees saying, oh, how nice that Guruji takes a dry scholar and he's, you know, giving him his association to, you know, in a sense, amplify his bhakti and to really give him a chance to be, you know, all his life studying books, and now he gets to be next to the real thing. Yeah, people were speaking like that.
Crazy.
And I was saying, I can understand how you would get to that belief, but please shut your mouths. Like, please don't speak this, right? And then, soon after, I hear the same thing going on in the opposite camp, where I heard some devotees of Babaji saying that, oh, it's so nice how, you know, Babaji is so merciful and compassionate because he's so advanced and Guruji is relatively young and he's not so, you know, well knowledgeable about scripture and philosophy, and his mission is therefore very, you know, novice mission. So therefore he gives his association to Guruji so that we can learn some real Vaishnava philosophy and Vedanta from Babaji. So it's like a nice, you know, marriage, a friendship where, you know, Babaji gets to help his disciples, you know, and Guruji is bringing more people to Babaji's classes, right? So they saw it from that lens. Like, what a luck for Guruji that Babaji is educating his devotees, and our devotees were saying, what a luck for Babaji that he gets to be next to the real deal, right? And not in books. And I just sat there and I thought, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? That there is an actual nice relationship here, but from the opinions of the other side, they wouldn't like how each one of it sees it. Like, I'm not happy with the way that those devotees spoke about the relationship, as I'm 100% sure that they wouldn't be happy about the way that our devotees were talking about it. Now, to be clear, it was just a few devotees, right? We're not talking that is the stance of, you know, either guru nor the mission. But the point is, it made me open my eyes to this reality of like the stories we tell ourselves in our heads, or the lens through which we see things. And I go, at some point, we're going to have a transparent conversation about this. And at some point, we're going to have to, only the mature ones that let go of dogmatism and realize that God is present everywhere and is present in more places than just your sampradaya. Only at that point are we going to actually ever truly, I think, cross a line of true connection and true brotherhood and true friendship. The same applies for other religions, by the way. Like, if a follower of Christ acknowledges that Christ is not the only divine embodiment that has ever walked this earth, we can have real conversations and real connection. If they stand to this opinion that, oh, it's nice what you guys do, but, you know, Christ is the real truth. There is no real truth outside of Christ. You never have the grounds for real connection. You know what I mean? And I feel like our experiences, the stories that we collect and tell, we should think about them sometimes, like from that filter. Like, I respect that we have our beliefs. I believe Guruji's divine incarnation, God incarnation. Yes, I do. But I have to be very careful whom I say it to, how I say it, to make sure I'm not saying it in an offensive way. Because my beliefs should not offend or harm someone who has their own positive beliefs. So for me, to believe Guruji is God does not require me to therefore denigrate other gurus by saying they are therefore lesser and are, you know, at his mercy, or they should be serving him, or whatever it may be. And I really think that is something that we all need to sit and reflect on. When Gaudiyas go around saying, oh, Mahaprabhu, divine incarnation, you know, Sankir, he's the Yuga avatar, he's this, that, and the other. It's like, he is, yes. But with what taste are you saying that? Therefore everyone is inferior? Or we recognize that same Mahaprabhu, that same God, may also choose to present himself or manifest himself in different ways and different times to different people. And then they'll say to me, but all the incarnations are mentioned in Shastra. They're all mentioned in Shastra. Why are you making these claims? I don't know, we've gone a bit off topic now, but two simple answers to that is, if Mahaprabhu's incarnation was so obvious in Shastra, why did not all the Vaishnava scholars of the world immediately bow at his lotus feet? The Sri Sampradaya were the most scholarly Vaishnavas on planet Earth. Rich history of deep Shastric analysis, Vedantic commentary, etc. Already more than 500 years of established tradition in South India. And basically one prominent disciple converted to become a disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And yet I'm sitting here saying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an incarnation. The point I'm therefore making is A, how unobvious it is when the divine incarnates. It's not an obvious thing for everybody to accept so easily. And second, how the apparent obvious evidences are really not that obvious. So the same thing applies for us. We think it's so obvious that Guruji is great. It's not that obvious for people that are already in other frameworks, right? And in Bhagavatam itself, which is their supreme authority, says, it lists all the incarnations of the Lord, and then it says, but there are many more, unnamed, unlisted here, right? And so I'm just of the therefore default position that I'm not going to limit by saying, yes, this one is not. And therefore I have to have a different kind of respect. So I'm a fan of some stories, I'm less of a fan of other stories. That story of Murali Das Babaji, in the chamber of my heart, in my room, I love that story. It's a story I would never tell, personally, because I would be so concerned with offending a disciple of Murali Das Babaji. That version of the story. I can tell it as a factual event, that he showed up when he left his body. And the person was shouting Mahapurusha. Because these are just factual events. I'm not giving it a flavor or interpretation to it. The minute I say, 40 years ago, the disciple said Krishna would liberate him. That's interpretation. Not that I disagree with the interpretation, but you see,
or you put the components of the story in what you want to tell.
Yeah, because I'm spinning a narrative that suits my personal beliefs about Guruji. Because their disciples can say, and he left his body in Vrindavan, which is the abode of Krishna. Krishna liberated him. What are you talking about? Yeah, and that's a completely valid interpretation also, which is why I'm saying it takes a high degree of maturity to deal with experiences in a proper way, to speak about them in a proper way, to consider the full global impact of things. And we always have to think bigger picture and also legacy, history. Like what will we be remembered as? Because today I speak about Mahaprabhu because we have a legacy of experiences and stories and all this kind of stuff. And it sets the culture for generations to come, because you and I, we know Guruji. There will be a generation that will never have met him.
Yeah.
And they're going to meet him through the books and stories and videos and podcasts and whatever else where we talk about him. And I would pray and hope that when that day comes, we, the custodians of this generation, will have presented an authentic version of Guruji that prioritizes understanding and brotherhood and respect for others whenever he has truly given that. And I feel like Guruji more often than not promotes that. In fact, he gave me one rule for my podcast. Don't attack fellow Hindus.
Wow.
Just don't do it. So.
Yeah, I remember one time in Brazil, we were together, 2019. And this is the other side of the same problem. People can get offended, yes, when one openly speaks about the miracles or the stories, or people fade away because no, this is too crazy, no, this is this is impossible. But in the other hand, we were together with Guruji that night. We were having a moment with followers or people from there, and basically was Guruji seated with us, and all the people around just relax, speaking about whatever was going through their minds, engaging in conversations, different circles. And I mentioned to the round with you there and Guruji, I said, oh, it's so nice that they can be so relaxed around you, Guruji. Because for me, I was listening all of these stories and putting Guruji on the highest pedestal, it's difficult to just be so relaxed around him. You know, I tend to be more uncomfortable with his divinity.
Right.
And Guruji said, yes, that's because they don't know who I am. So I think in that sense, the miracles, they could offend people, they could challenge people in the same way that Guruji challenged people, not similar. But in the other hand, if they are not, as you say, storage, recounted, film, it's a legacy for the world that is a crime to lose it. It's like, imagine if the Bhagavatam would not have been written, because Vedavyasa will think, what if there's some sectors of the society get offended with what I'm writing, with the stories will not suit the narrative of maybe political or groups from that moment. And he just went for it. He's just like, look, this is the divine revelation, boom, and he's sent it all out. And so, and also I see in darshans, when Guruji asks people to share experience during darshan, he asks them, or the rule is, don't let them put the interpretation on it. He says, tell the people to just tell the story. And then everybody serves from the story whatever they need to take. It's like a plate of food, and everybody comes and they eat. So just this little annotation from my side, the importance of collecting everything, publishing everything, and everybody can serve themselves. And as I said, because, for example, the way I tell the story of Murali Das Babaji, and saying like, 40 years ago, maybe that is just myth. Maybe some devotee put that component. It's true. And that is BS, could be.
Yeah.
But in the other hand...
No, I fully agree with you about the first thing which you said about, like, it would be a crime not to record these things. I'm with you. I think it's non-negotiable. But I think I still stand by what I said, that we have to just be mature. How you disseminate, because one thing is that you have it recorded, for example, the Bhagavatam, and then I can go read it and make my own conclusions from it, right? But if now you take the Bhagavatam and you purposely shove it in the face of everybody that it could offend on purpose, because you want to provoke them, I'm not sure how pure those intentions are. You've taken something wonderful, but you're misusing it in a sense. So the same thing with experiences. I think experiences are wonderful things that have transformative power, but they can sometimes be misused to make some kind of point, to win an argument, to offend somebody. There was a devotee once who was coming from another guru and had met Guruji and, unlike you, felt this immediate attraction, but had another guru. So the person was very like conflicted and kind of like, oh, what do I do? You know, I like my guru, I have no problem, but I had this undeniable connection and attraction to Guruji. Like, I try not to think of him because I have my guru, and my mind just constantly goes back to him. What do I do? What do I do? And the person asked me for advice. And I, as a Swami, had to sit there and say, okay, well, now I have to make a choice. What do I recommend this person to do? Stay with your guru, or follow your feelings and move away from your guru, or say nothing? You know, like it's a big thing. My intuition told me to tell the person to be true to themselves. Like, I cannot tell you to leave your guru. I cannot do something like that. Now, my personal opinion was that the guru that person had is vastly inferior to Guruji. Okay? But from my biased point of view, as I was saying earlier, right? I had to remind myself of my need for maturity to not represent that, because, as I said, imagine I'm in those shoes and I really love my guru and have a genuine relationship with him, and then some other guy who thinks he knows better comes and judges my guru and says he's a very low-level guru. Yeah. It's just a horrible thing. It's something so pure, the guru-disciple relationship, and to sit there and just denigrate it because you think you know better. So I luckily I didn't make any comments of, negativity about the guru whatsoever. I said, the person, follow your heart, like, just stay true to yourself. Like, don't deny what you feel. If it's one way or the other way, this would be the shame, in a sense, right? But speak to your guru also, maybe. And then I went and spoke to my guru. I spoke to Guruji and I said, what should I do in a moment like this? And he said, never encourage them to leave their guru. Uh-huh. You may think it's the most businessman guru, most bogus guru in the world or whatever. Because the minute you encourage them to leave the guru, you're teaching them that leaving a guru because you feel like it is good. And that means when they eventually find also a guru that is their Satguru, that is meant to take them to the feet of Krishna, one day they'll wake up and not like what the guru is doing to them or saying to them, and they will also walk away because you gave them this green light. Yeah. He said, this you should not destroy this. He said, just encourage them to follow their heart, encourage them to inquire, encourage them to really go within. And if it's meant to be, God will always guide them. He's like, you think God is just passively watching all of this? He said, the most beautiful thing is that the responsibility is not yours as the advice giver. The responsibility is on the person seeking the advice, how sincere they are. If they are sincerely looking for truth, Krishna will guide them. He will help them arrive at the true outcome. If they're trying to escape their guru for not pure motives, or if they're attracted to me because it's fashionable, because their friend is my devotee, not because they actually feel it in their heart, then this will also get exposed. They will not be the help for that, to facilitate that transfer, because there's no sincerity in that, right? So what I liked about it was really this maturity thing kept being called in, and Guruji sort of saying like, it's nice to have these experiences, whatever, but like don't offend people, like don't attack people with this.
Yeah. Also, another maybe things to be aware of is listening too many of these stories. It can create a certain ungroundedness, no?
Yeah.
On people, and I could experience that myself. Like being too aware of the crazy miracles of Guruji, I don't know, brings you too much to a naive point of view about life, about spirituality, that you think that the Guru will just walk and right and left just do miracles, no? And then it's actually spiritual path is a path of inner transformation and going through inner challenges and stuff. And yeah, and then when the show is finished, when the Guru is not showing all of these miracles, then the emotions goes down, and then the strengths to go into the path are not the same. That I think is something to notice. And also, in the other hand, listening to the stories, the positive side, gives a little bit of, I would say, ungroundedness, a healthy ungroundedness.
Yeah.
To think that impossible things can actually become possible.
I'm with you there.
No,
I think sometimes people can be too grounded also. I agree with you.
Underground.
Yeah, living underground communities.
Yeah.
Hollow earth. Yeah, no. I agree with you. I think that one of the things that people sometimes miss is this. It's like this, like let's not strip the divinity away from the divine. Like let's not fully strip the mysticism from God, because God is not mundane and understandable and logical and rational in a scientific way almost. Like he is beyond our understanding. That scriptures are clear on that, beyond definition, beyond our understanding. And so I think sometimes the people who tend to be grounded, they almost make it too grounded, you know? And I know it's a delicate thing because you also don't want to promote fantasy, but I'm with you there. I think that there's a healthy degree of like 1 foot in the sky, 1 foot on the ground type of thing.
Yeah.
I think both feet on the ground is good as a starting point, definitely. Guruji will say that. Kind of Denai Guruji has said, keep your feet on the ground. Yeah, but sometimes lifting a little bit, 1 foot, you know, reaching for the
whatever is needed, no? And in that moment, I remember I had when I just came here, we used to go and play football in the village.
Before it got banned.
Actually, I think I was one of the reasons why it got banned.
Yes, because you got injured.
Yeah,
bunch of guys got badly injured in like 2 weeks space, like ankles broken, knees messed up. And Guruji was just like, you guys are savages, stop, no more recreational activities.
Yeah, was the time that we may have some free time. So I broke my meniscus, and I was in this part of my path, listening all the miracles of Guruji and saying he can just heal me, you know? So I broke my meniscus, and I didn't want to operate because my
ungroundedness,
feng shui,
because
ungroundedness, and so I decided that I will dance in the temple harder to kind of force Krishna or Sadhguru to help me. So I was dancing that day and having these thoughts, and when I walk away from the temple, I found Guruji in the garden. And he goes really hard, you idiot, what are you doing? You know, you have your meniscus broken. Why are you dancing like a crazy man? And he told me, go and operate yourself. Yeah. And like, boom, down to earth. Yeah. I was thinking, man, I'm in the spiritual path. Miracles should manifest. So I was a bit upset, actually. But I went to the doctor. The doctor was Dr. Goal.
Dr. Goal.
Yeah, that is good doctor. And so the operation went well and everything was perfect. So fast forward 4 years later, I broke my other meniscus, the other leg.
Jeez,
and this
I remember.
No, but this time I don't even try it. No, I'm on the underground part of my path, I would say. So I just don't even ask to Guruji. I don't expect anything from God. I just do my dharma. I do my duty. I go to the doctor and I'm actually asking for an appointment for an operation. And while I'm in the car with Swami Akash, Guruji calls randomly just to speak, to see how are we doing. And he asks, where are you going? I say, well, I'm going to the doctor because I broke my knee. I say, what, you were playing football again? No, this time it's because I'm in the office, doing office work as a monk on the 21st century, like getting fat and not exercise.
Typing so violently that your knee just...
My fingers are very strong, but my knees lose the power. And so I told him, my knee is broken, and so I'm going to ask for an appointment for an operation. Mm-hmm. And he said like, no, don't worry, just put some cabbage leaves on your knee, and that's it. And I say, okay, this is the new instruction. Underground, okay, I bring a little bit more so you're not really under. Stay a little bit optimistic. Miracles still happen. Don't wait for them, but sometimes when he wants, he manifests. And the last thing actually of the stories that I love the most is one that we also were together, 2019, in a very beautiful place, Brazil. Now that the conversation is finished, we can say that we achieved the real goal.
Tell me more.
Beautiful country, South America. And we are visiting some religious places there in the city.
Ah, yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
And we come out and we see this, was empanada? No,
churros. There's a lady making churros.
Yeah. Middle-aged lady, 40, 50-year-old. And she's doing these vegan churros. And someone asked Guruji, do you want some churros? Let's ask her. And he said, yeah, I'll go and ask her. I think you went and Danudar, the Portuguese speaking. So we approached to her, we start asking for churros. And Guruji came after behind us. And when the woman looked at Guruji, she started crying. And so we asked her, I think you asked her, what's going on? And what did she say?
Well, she had said a few things, but she said, for example, like, first of all, we thanked her for making vegan churros. I mean, she was saying how, like, actually it had been really tough because not so popular in Brazil, and so she was doing it. She just had a feeling to do it, and so she was like also, anyway, in general, going through a difficult moment in her life, and she was praying to God to give her a sign. Like she was praying to God, give her some sign to not only for the churros to keep going with this vegan thing, but just in general that he's with her.
It was her birthday that day.
And then it was her birthday. Yeah. And I remember like Revatikaanta like pulls, like he says to her like, look, your sign came today, and Guruji's there. And Guruji blessed her, and she was like crying, making our churros, super happy. Maybe there was something else that I can't remember right now, but yeah, generally it was just like this random thing. She was making vegan churros. We all go to her. She said, I have been praying to God for a sign that I should keep going, that he's with me, whatever else. And today's my birthday, and Guruji rocks up there. And it was like, yeah. She was just in tears, and she came for the darshan.
For the darshan after, yeah. Basically, I remember she said, I know he's the answer to my prayers.
Yeah.
That I did this morning. Something inside of her just
he was the sign. Yeah.
But what I like from this story is that when we went to the car with Guruji, the one who was in tears was actually Guruji. With not crying, but like with wet eyes.
Wet eyes, yeah.
And he said, you see, people is trying to look for God in crazy miracles and they forget about finding him in the simple things.
It's true. It's true. He likes that stuff, Guruji. He again, I just feel like he's so misunderstood, Guruji. He's just such a misunderstood person. I was talking to a couple of brahmacharis here. We were talking about the Bhagavatam and how the Bhagavatam has beautiful stories and very emotional, and Guruji cries when he talks about Sudama and all this kind of stuff, right? And then I said to them, Guruji cries for other stuff too. And they were like what? And I was like, Naruto? It's like, we watched Naruto, Japanese anime. For those of you who have seen it, we watched Naruto with Guruji. We skipped like a bunch of filler episodes, but we watched. And when it comes to the end, there's like this big fight between Naruto and Sasuke, the main like character, and his friend, sort of antagonist. And then in the end, like, I think Sasuke is like fighting him, saying like, why do you not give up? Why do you keep fighting? Like, why? And then Naruto's just like, because you're my brother, like I cannot give up on my brother, I love you, whatever. And I look at Guruji, and Guruji's just like crying, like wet eyes, tears rolling down. And he's like, it's so nice. It's so beautiful.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, like he's like, it's so nice. The brotherhood, that that's real friendship, real love, like so simple. Like, no matter how bad a person becomes, no matter how much they go through, whatever, that you don't give up on them. You're always there for the people you love and whatever. And I was just like, if people knew that here's Guruji sitting in his afternoon crying, watching Japanese anime, right? Like, that's Guruji. And people don't know, right? And I've seen Guruji cry for different reasons. And I've seen Guruji work really hard and do so much self-sacrifice, so much for people. I mean, his whole life is that. But this is what I mean, like, when I love that we tell these stories, because people get an insight of, like, who he is, the kind of person that he is, and how simple he is, even though he appears to be very grandiose. It's like, no, God always, is found in the simple things of life.
Yeah.
Not only, but yeah.
Yeah, when recording the experiences, actually, we also try to get this cream, of Guruji's personality in this life, and because also touch something inside when you hear these kind of things.
For sure.
It has both components, the miracle and the transformation. Yeah. For sure. So in a way, I hope that experiences can help to build this big puzzle of who is Paramahamsa Vishwananda.
So I think let's sort of summarize. So, like, we need to record. Like, people need to also write down. Like, I think it's really important, because I look at my life, I'm ashamed to say I have forgotten many things that I experienced with Guruji in the early years, because I wasn't writing it down, right? And I think that don't underestimate how much you forget with the passing of time. So I think any devotee listening to this, any follower, any person, even outside of Bhakti Marga, so with your own guru, your own religious life, your own experiences, I think there's immense value, right? And just writing it down, recording it somewhere, making sure that these things are not forgotten, lost, because you never know what the future holds. And so I think that, and you're basically, you're someone who's really spearheading that at the moment in Bhakti Marga. So if the devotees have some great stories, please reach out to Rishi Aditya.
Please.
I think this is going to be something that in the future we won't know the size of the impact that this may have. I think it's really a legacy thing. Maybe in the short term it's just, it's one more nice story for my day-to-day life. But I think in the future this is the only way people are going to get to know Paramahamsa Vishwananda, who he was and who he is. And so thank you for your seva. It's great seva.
Yeah, thanks to Guruji to give me this seva, actually.
Sure.
I think when we just come to the path, one of these miracles can, or not miracle, like stories, can really...
Testimonies. It's like sharing, really.
Can really change someone. Can really help someone to change. After a while, as you say, we get used to miracles and it becomes like a normal thing. And so it doesn't determine that we will be surrendered because of the miracles, but can help us on the path.
Solidify and... Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Aditya. It was a lovely conversation. Hope that we can have many more stories to tell in the future, because Guruji will be with us for way longer, sharing way more experiences, and then we can do a round two of nice experiences.
Looking forward for... Thank you very much. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.